The last thing I remember was my little boy's tiny hand reaching out from the cold riverbank. Then the darkness swallowed me whole. I collapsed there on the muddy ground, praying that death would take me too. 25 years passed like an endless winter. Then he returned, not as the helpless infant I lost, but in a way that turned my world upside down. Hello, my friends. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 78 years old now, living quietly in the same small town of Beaufort, South Carolina, where I was born and where life once broke me into pieces. These days I spend my mornings on the front porch of my little cottage, rocking in the chair my son built for me years ago. I watch the Spanish moss swaying in the live oaks and tend to my flower beds, roses, hydrangeas, and jasmine that fill the air with sweetness. It's my sanctuary, this porch where the sea breeze whispers peace into my old bones. The house itself is modest. White clapboard walls, a tin roof that sings in the rain, and a garden out back where I grow vegetables for my table. Collard greens, okra, tomatoes ripe and warm from the sun. My son bought this place for me in 2000, after pulling me from the ruins of my old life. Before that, I never owned a single inch of earth that was truly mine. But enough about now. Let me take you back to 1958 when I was just 14, a scared girl in a world that showed no mercy to the poor or the weak. Beaufort back then was a sleepy coastal town, with shrimp boats dotting the harbor and families scraping by on fishing or farm work. We lived in a rundown shotgun house on the edge of the marshes. My daddy Harlan, my older brother Clyde, and me. Mama had died birthing me, leaving daddy bitter and lost to the bottle. He was a fisherman when sober, mean as a snake when drunk, which was most days. His hands were rough from nets and ropes, and they landed heavy on anyone in reach. Clyde was 19, big and lazy, always hanging around the docks with no good friends, coming home smelling of cheap whiskey and trouble. He had Mama's dark eyes but none of her kindness. After Mama was gone, the house felt empty and dangerous. I did all the chores, cooking cornbread and beans over a wood stove, scrubbing clothes in a washtub, mending nets for pennies from neighbors. No school for me. Daddy said girls didn't need books, just strong backs. The real nightmare started when I was 13. Clyde began looking at me differently, lingering stares, accidental touches. He'd corner me in the narrow hallway, whispering things that made my skin crawl. "You're growing up pretty, Ellie. Time you learned what that's for." Daddy never noticed, too deep in his cups. One humid summer night in 1958, Daddy was out on a boat job that kept him away. Clyde came home early, drunk and angry from losing at cards. He dragged me to the back room, and no matter how I begged or fought, he took what he wanted. I won't linger on the horror of it. Some wounds are too deep to reopen. He threatened to kill me if I told, said Daddy would beat me senseless and no one would believe a troublemaking girl, anyway. It happened again and again whenever Daddy was gone. By spring of 1959, my body betrayed the secret. A swelling belly I hid under loose dresses. At 14 I was terrified, pregnant by my own brother, too young to understand it all, but old enough to know shame and fear. The baby came in a storm that November. Alone in the house, pains ripping through me like lightning, I birthed a boy on the floor with only old towels and boiling water. He was small but strong, with a cry that pierced my heart. For one fleeting moment holding him I felt pure love, a fierce, protective fire. But Daddy and Clyde came home early, soaked from the rain. They saw the baby and rage exploded. "Who's the father, you little whore?" Daddy roared, snatching my son away. I lied, said it was some boy from town, a one-time mistake. Clyde smirked, knowing the truth, his eyes warning me to stay silent. They gave me no choice. Drunk and cruel, they forced me out into the night, baby bundled in my arms. We trudged to the marshy riverbank behind the house, a wild, forgotten spot choked with reeds and trash from floods. "Leave him here," Daddy snarled. "We ain't feedin' no bastard." I begged, sobbed, clung to my child. Clyde struck me until I weakened. With shaking hands I laid my boy down on the damp ground among the debris. His tiny fingers grasped at the air, searching for me. As his cries faded into the wind, I fainted, wishing the tide would carry me away too. When I woke he was gone. I searched frantically at dawn, crawling through mud, calling his name, but only emptiness. For 25 years, guilt gnawed at me. Did animals take him? Did the river rise? Or did someone find and save him? Life dragged on in that house of hell. I slaved for Daddy and Clyde, cleaning, cooking, working odd jobs at the cannery. They drank away my wages, mocked me daily, Remember that bastard you dumped? We saved you from ruin. Clyde still leered, but I learned to evade him, locking myself away when possible. They aged poorly, Daddy hunched and coughing from years at sea, Clyde bloated and useless. I became their unpaid servant, my youth stolen, dreams buried. Then in 1984, everything shifted. I was 40, returning from a long shift at the shrimp plant, bone-tired. A sleek car was parked near the docks, a rare sight in our poor corner. A man stood talking to folks, tall, well-dressed, maybe 25, with sharp features and a confident air. He didn't belong here. As I passed, his eyes locked on mine. A jolt ran through me, a small birthmark on his cheek shaped like a crescent. Something stirred in my memory. That night Daddy and Clyde were rattled. Some fancy fella askin questions, 'bout old times, Clyde muttered. 'Bout babies born round here, abandoned ones. My heart stopped. Could it be? Days later the man returned. This time he came straight to our door. "Good evening," he said calmly. "I'm Thomas Hayes. I believe you know why I'm here." He laid out papers. The house in foreclosure from unpaid debts, bought by him at auction. Then the truth, he'd been found as a newborn on that riverbank by a kind fisherman, Mr. Leroy, who raised him with love. Leroy told him the spot on his deathbed. Thomas studied hard, earned degrees, built a successful seafood business in Charleston. He'd investigated quietly. Neighbors remembered a pregnant teen, whispers of family shame. He knew the full story, the abuse, the abandonment, who the real father was. Clyde tried to bolt. Thomas's men stopped him. Daddy blubbered excuses. "You have 1 hour to leave," Thomas said coldly. "Or the police hear everything, abuse, abandonment, the rest." They fled with nothing, broken men. Thomas turned to me, eyes softening. My eyes. "Mama," he whispered. "I've come to take you home." He'd thought I abandoned him willingly at first. Learning the truth fueled his resolve. Not revenge, but justice. He brought me to Beaufort proper, to a new life. Years with him and his family, he married a sweet teacher, gave me grandchildren who fill my days with laughter. Daddy died forgotten in a flop house. Clyde drank himself, gone soon after. Today at 78 I rock on my porch watching grandbabies play in the yard. My garden blooms, my heart healed. That tiny boy in the marsh grew into a man who saved me. Life's twists are mysterious, friends. Pain carves deep, but love endures. What was meant to destroy us can circle back as redemption. If you're suffering, hold on. Miracles grow in the darkest soil. Sometimes the child you lose returns to lift you into the light.